In this episode of the Tech Jawn, Meta, did they think it was a good idea to wear smart glasses in the court? We've got some bootleg TV stuff to talk about. That seems like it's on the rise because people get tired of paying all these prices. And big tech seems to fail again with ChatGPT not notifying about a potential shooting instance in Canada. That's kind of crazy. But we've got all this, a whole heck of a lot more to talk about. We've got a spotlight for you, all in episode, I believe this is 216 of the Tech Jawn from Columbus, Ohio. I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly, it's your girl Tech Life Steph.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech, aka Happy 18th Birthday Boogie. My oldest turned 18 yesterday, so I think her birthday week was last week, so I think we're done for the week.
Officially.
So, yeah, so I just want to send a happy birthday shout out.
Well, happy
grown up now.
Birthday.
Yep, I'm already taking her off of bank accounts and filling out credit card applications and taking her off my screen time and all the techie stuff. Just like, look, you're an adult now, so you got to manage your own money. You got to get your own accounts. You got to manage your own stuff going forward. So
that's right.
Now's the time to start. My daughter is getting ready to graduate college, and my wife is into all of these groups for A&T where parents are just talking about what they're doing for their 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old kids.
It's not going to be me.
And it's like,
not going to be me.
They're never going to learn how to do any of this stuff on their own.
Yep.
And it's
crazy.
It's just like,
my girls have been, my oldest is 18 and my middle child is 15. And it's like, look, y'all can use daddy's credit card, authorized user, but at the end of the month, run me my money. If you ain't got it to pay at the end of the month to put it back to zero, don't buy it. So, my oldest has been doing it for the past, 3 years, so now it's time for her to, we got joint accounts for checking and saving. And we've done all that. We've been through the stories and I've told her the rules and, you save this much, however much you get in a check, you should be saving this amount. You should be spending this amount. You should be trying to, invest a little bit. That's the part they don't listen to me. It's like, if you start right now,
man,
you get $100, put $5 in the just $5. I ain't asking for half. I ain't asking for 80%. Just $5. If you get $100, $5 should go into the investment account. I already got the little index fund set up. All they got to do is buy more, and they ain't even got to buy a whole share. With the
fraction.
Yeah. Just $5. If you start now, by the time you get 30, you will have bank.
You got to show them a few more compounding examples because
I do.
That shit is real, yo.
I let them into my little retirement accounts. I let them into my little brokerage accounts, my little IRAs. I'm like, look, and this is when we started after college, when we got married, when we started having kids, we was setting this stuff. Imagine if you start all the way back in your teens, just $5 here, $20 there, but like they say, youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah. If there's so many reports they all say the same thing because money, it accumulates the same way. If you start at 18 and you just do 10%, like you're saying 5%, but if you do 10%, from 18 until you get your first real job. Then when you get your first real job, if they have a good 401k, max that joker out plus $100, you should be a millionaire by 35.
That's it.
By 35. But it's like,
but yeah, all in all, financial literacy has been my big thing, because it wasn't taught to me when I was their age. We was just out here butt naked, right? But now it's just like, all right, I got some know-how. I got some skills. I've got some lessons learned. So let me impart that on you now. So by the time you get 20, by the time you get 22, by the time you get 25, you're not going to have these problems. If you got these problems, you don't blame nobody but yourself. You don't blame the job. You don't blame the government. You don't blame anybody else. Because I told you what time it was and you chose to do whatever. So now you know.
That's it. That's all you can do is teach them, try to train them up in the way that they should go. And you hope that they don't stray from the path. So
and hope they don't stray from the path. My oldest should be all right. My youngest, my middle child should be all right because she really don't go nowhere. It's my son. He We was on vacation. He's like, "Can I take my wallet with me?" I'm like, "You just want to spend money. We going on
Harder to
vacation.
hold it.
Mom and
Mhm.
dad got it, but we we went to like a mall, like the regular old mall. So we was on the resort, but at the same time, it's like every once in a while, I'm like, all right, let's go where the people at, right? So we went to the downtown area where just a regular old mall, and went into the mall, and at the counter in the middle, they looking for the tourists, and we look like tourists. Well, the people said they said I look Dominican a little bit, but I was like, whatever, y'all just trying to sell me stuff. But anyway, in the middle kiosk in the middle of the mall, they see the tourists coming, so they get their smiles together. My son, he had his heart set on this little bracelet, and it's like, all right, man, if you want to spend your money, go ahead. I ain't gonna stop you. So he bought his little bracelet. I think it was like $6 something. I can stomach you getting me for $6 on some souvenirs that you bought from Amazon and reselling it. But
Right.
that's a story for another day. I'm okay with you spending
Yeah.
a little $6 to get your little bracelet. So go ahead, do your thing, bro.
My youngest, she's going on spring break Sunday. So she leaves. Her and three of her girlfriends are going on a cruise. So her mom is like, make sure you did this, and do you got this set up and this set up, and do you got this, and take what a mom would do. I'm like, she grown, she good. It's like, tickets paid for, that she bought her on her own. But here's the part that I'm proud of. So, sweetie, did you get that? Did you get the drink package so you can get soda and like premium coffee? She's like, nah, I'll be good I'm only gonna be going a week. I'm fine with water and tea and juice. It's like, did you upgrade that internet package? Like, nah, I will text you and mom when we get to the islands. So she is what is her
Knows how to
dollars.
economize.
What is her dollars? She's being very,
Mhm.
very judicious on what she spends extra money. I was like, what? Oh, I'm getting on a boat. I'm trying to party on the boat. What do I need to be, writing blog posts for? I don't need internet access, high speed beyond what you just get on the boat. So I'm proud of her that way. But y'all, I do want to, before we get into the tech, we have a record here. So I think it has been 4 weeks now in a row that we've had some new patrons. Last week we had 2. Technically, we don't have a patron today, but we have a gentleman. His name is Melvin Golden. Has said, hey, he actually sent a message. I don't do Patreon, but y'all got like a buy me a coffee or something like that. So I'm thinking, well, yeah, here's our buy me a coffee. Anything you do, we must, we'd appreciate. I thought it was gonna be like the $5 type. He sent us $50 on buy me a coffee. So Melvin Golden,
Okay.
appreciate you, bro. And for anybody
you,
else who's
Melvin.
wondering, if you don't rock with Patreon, which you can get by heading to the patreon.com/the Tech Jawn, you can hit us up on buy me a coffee. That is just the Tech Jawn, buymeacoffee.com/the Tech Jawn. So you can do that there, as Melvin just did. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much. So with that,
Absolutely.
we're going to jump into some of these tech stories. And this first one, Facebook, or not Facebook, Meta has been, we've been hearing news about them going to court about their social media platforms being addictive, particularly to younger students. But the story here that actually caught my eye beyond them going to court, we'll talk about some of the stuff that happened in court, is that you're going to court as Meta, Zuckerberg and his entourage is walking in. You're going into court because the plaintiffs that are trying to sue you for millions of dollars are saying that your platforms are just too addictive. And these folks thought it was a good idea to walk into court wearing Meta RayBans. With them joke, I don't. The articles didn't say that they were turned on, but it did say that they were wearing them. And they ended up getting excruciated by the judge. The audacity was some of the language used of you to wear these into open court, take them off, or you're going to be held in contempt. I just thought that was nuts, that you're being sued for addictive behavior in your application. And it was the decision for everybody to wear these glasses into the courtroom. That's almost like spitting into the eye of the court to me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting just what happens when all this stuff shakes out. But it almost low key feels like they're proving the prosecution's case, because I'm like, what else would motivate you to do something like that? Like, besides a low key addiction to social media, because what is the purpose of that beyond, potentially posting that content to the web or on a social media platform? Like why are you doing this in the first place? I'm trying to understand, and I feel like it's a part of the part of the complaint that the plaintiffs are making, is that these platforms are super addictive. I feel like these people that would wear, that wouldn't have the foresight or the wherewithal to understand that you don't wear this in a courtroom, it's probably because they are so what is the phrase that people use
Enamored.
when you, and
I said,
enamored, but
no.
chronically online. That's the phrase I'm looking for.
Oh, got it.
That these people are so chronically online that they don't even know better, that you shouldn't have these glasses on in a courtroom. So I feel like that kind of sort of low key, proves the point in a sense.
Do we know if this was on? I know it was on purpose, but do we believe that they were trying to prove a point that these glasses are so ubiquitous and so like a part of our everyday fixture that there's no problem for them to be worn in court? Or was Zuckerberg like purposely staging this to like, I don't know. I because I saw another picture. So I clicked through and it looked like just out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 people, only 2 of them, a man and a woman, had the glasses on in this picture that I'm looking at. Doesn't look like the whole team. So when you first, the story, when Rob, you first put the story in the notes, I assumed everybody was going to be flanked like some Thunderbird, like the airplanes. They are in position and they have the triangle position, and then Mark Zuckerberg's in the
Like they was
middle.
coming in
He's
formation.
got the
It's
sunglasses.
coming in
Yeah,
formation.
right. And all of them have sunglasses. The picture I'm looking at is just one man and one lady have them on. So maybe my assumption is, Stephanie, like you mentioned, people are so chronically online that they didn't even think as lawyers, as counsel
Right.
in a case to where we are arguing whether or not social media is addictive. Like you mentioned, maybe it's proven their point by them like not even realizing that 1 + 1 = 2. Maybe I should take these off. Or was this something that Zuckerberg on the low let them do on purpose to show that Ray-Bans are no big deal? You can turn them off when you have important things to do, like try a case. Or,
Or
you
it
can
could have
turn them
just
back
been
on.
advertising. You know what I mean?
Maybe,
Like
yeah.
he knew that picture was going to go viral.
Yeah.
You absolutely know that this is something that is going to get picked up by every, outlet, that's covering this trial. So
Mhm.
it could also just be free advertising, if
Yeah.
nothing else, at a minimum.
I think that because I've watched enough episodes of Suits LA, and Lincoln Lawyer to know that at this level of lawyering, of being a lawyer, at this level of court with folks that have these kind of resources, we're talking about, one of the richest people on earth with one of the richest companies on earth. Everything is a calculated decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it was like absolutely on purpose. These glasses were worn in court to the point to where the judge had to say something about it. I now maybe they weren't calculating that they were going to take these jokers off or else was going to come. But I think it was a calculated thing that was done, that we're going to wear these in to open court. But as we get into the case, because Zuckerberg, he testified for 8 hours. I mean, it was, he was on trial for a lot of this, and there's a lot of going back and forth on what constitutes addiction and other stuff. One of the things that I thought was very interesting was Adam Mosseri, who basically is the head of Instagram, said with a straight face that a teen who uses Instagram for 16 hours a day really doesn't display addictive behavior. Problematic, yes, but addictive, no. So it's like, so if you're on Instagram for the 16 waking hours that you are actually conscious and the other 8 is for sleep, that's not addictive. And he said this with a straight face.
Yeah, they're all I think culpable in this.
Hmm.
I feel like we're getting to a point where Section 230 is going to start to show some cracks, because it's too many kids dying and too many kids, developing eating disorders and shooting schools, as we're going to talk about in another story today. Is too much stuff happening with social media being somewhere in that nexus of causality, if you will, for us to keep ignoring the fact that these platforms are not doing enough to try to prevent this type of thing. I mean, in the case of the glasses, the judge admonished people in the courtroom not to wear them. They said they would be held in contempt if the court if they failed to delete any recordings. I'm like, how are you going to know if they even recorded, and if they deleted it, how are you going to know that too? But yeah, just going back to this trial overall, I think we're going to start to see some people finally be held accountable
Hmm.
for some of this stuff. I think Section 230 is going to start to crack just a little bit, because it is just way too much going on. I was reading through the Verge article you posted, Rob, and they were talking about the filters, the AR filters
Hmm.
that did plastic surgery and stuff like that. And, the fact that I guess their answer to trying to be proactive in mitigating some of the harm that those things cause were not to post them themselves. So the
Hmm.
companies themselves don't have filters, but if a creator generates a filter and creates a filter and uploads it for other people to use, then it's okay. And it's just like,
Hmm.
it struck me that they harped on the idea of free speech suppression for the justification of why they allow this kind of stuff on the platform. And it's just like, nobody needs to rearrange their face with a filter. Like, that's not necessary. So it just, that argument just does not hold
Hmm.
weight to me. The idea that somebody's free speech is going to be suppressed because they can't.
They can't do whatever they want to do.
Right, because they can't do whatever. And it's like, you don't get to do, like, the same way y'all ban, pro-Palestinian content is the same way you can ban these damn
For real.
AR filters
Hmm.
on your platform, because it's your platform and you can do whatever you want on your platform. That whole free speech argument just does not apply when we're not talking about the government. And we're not talking about the government. I mean, well, that's out the window too these days, but that's a whole other conversation. But that argument just does not apply when you're talking about corporate responsibility. If you can do something to mitigate harm on your platform, you should,
Right.
just because it's the right thing to do. But they try to kind of hide behind that idea when number one, they're not practicing what they preach at all, because they censor all types of content on the
Hmm.
platform. So you could just censor a beauty filter as well.
Well, Steph, but they make money off the beauty filters, though. So I
Right.
do want to say this. One of our patrons, AB Puppy, last week, because we talk about Section 230 on this show a lot, but they said that, is there any chance we could actually get in a Section 230 expert maybe and have them come on the show and have a conversation? Because
Mm.
the other side of it, if we were to just get rid of Section 230, stuff that we say on a podcast could literally be something that,
It's true.
so
There's actually, oh man, and I forget who I follow. I think it's it might be the account Fight for the Future. But I'm not sure. It's not the electronic EFF Frontier Foundation, but there's an account I follow on TikTok. And I think it's Fight for the Future. I'll try to find it, but they're doing a series right now of what happens if Section 230 goes away, from that perspective that you just talked about, Rob. The fact that pro-Palestinian content would be censored, the fact that like all the actual things that we need social media for would be banned, the same as the bad
Mhm.
stuff, if the platforms now have to become accountable for all of the content on the platform. So, and I had, at first I was like, you just being alarmist. We need to get rid of Section 230. I've been, screaming that from the top of my lungs since forever, but there are some considerations. I think there are definite, like, legitimate pros and cons to getting rid of that statute. And I'm gonna go see if I can't find one of the videos. So I may have saved it and see if we can't get that person that's doing those videos maybe to come on and talk about it, because it definitely, there definitely is a both sides to that argument.
It really is, because I think that we probably are more anti 230, but I don't think none of us want it to just go away, because it going away, when you really think about it, it does allow these companies to allow a lot of content to exist that they simply just could not allow to exist if they were going to be held liable for everything that is ever said or done on their platform. It would not be, well, I tell you this much, social media would not be as fun as addicting as it is today. If
well, and we may, I think the platforms would collapse at that point if they had to assume the responsibility for billions billions of people's content. Like, they would probably need to start charging, because you would need way more moderators and way more AI to try to do some automatic filtering and whatever. Like, it would be a shit show. It would be kind of a shit show if they had to start taking responsibility for the content. So,
and I'm okay with that, but that's another story. I thought the story was interesting, and they didn't delve into it, but they were talking about how Mark Zuckerberg made some statements about his own kids, trying to keep them off of Facebook and Instagram, while all the same figuring out ways to make it safer for kids his age to be on Facebook and Instagram, old parent accounts and all that stuff. It's like, all right, well, if you as a dad have some sort of issue with your own kids being on the platforms as young as 13, I don't understand why the obtuseness of kids in general being on Facebook so young in general. And then you actually putting forth some of these things that get them hooked. It's just like, all right, I can't deal with if it's true, then I've seen all I need to see as far as this case is concerned, where it goes after this. But as far as like in general, if the owner or the founder is like, I don't know about having my kids on social media so young, I'm gonna take a playbook.
And they all do that. There's a great article in Fortune about how none of the people in the Silicon Valley let their kids on these platforms, because they know. That's the thing. They know, and they don't care about anybody else's kids. They don't give a damn about nobody else's kids. But we just continue to, flock and hand over those phones, and it's just it's a shame.
Well, you know what it is, Steph? They probably listen to you talk about the ills of social media on young minds, and how parents need to be the gatekeepers for what their children can actually do. Because if you think about, Terrance, what you just said, Zuck is like, heck no, I'm not letting my children on this stuff. This stuff is, not conducive to how I want them to be raised. But all this other stuff that we're doing is legal, at least right now, and it makes us money. So if you're wired to where I'm going to parent my kids, but I ain't worried about everybody else's kid. I'm worried about what the law says. I mean, that's kind of where I'm falling on this. We have to be careful with thinking that companies are going to do what is best for people. They're going to do what is best for their shareholders. And if that's making money, they now, I don't want to say that all companies are like this. There are some companies that have very, very strong standards, and they'll tell you what they believe in and why they're doing what they're doing, and why they're not doing some of the things that they could be doing that's legal, because it goes against those standards that they have. But not all companies are wired that way. A lot of companies are, how much money can we make if we do this? How much money is it going to cost us if we don't do it? Okay, I like the first option. We're going to go over there, and I'll just worry about my kids not being on this platform.
And I wish more parents would take that tack. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a Mark Zuckerberg and the Fortune article mentioned Peter Thiel, I'm like, it won't even let his kids on any of these. Like, all of those folks out there. Steve Jobs famously said that his kids didn't have an iPad, and this dude ran Apple. You know what I mean? So it's like, the pushback, a lot of the pushback, the large majority, the vast majority, 98% of the pushback I get from parents, when I say you have to be the parent and you have to decide how much screen time is appropriate, and whether or not your kid is ready, and like you have that power. The pushback 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100 is, well, I don't want them to be left out and not have what all their friends have. Who cares? If Jimmy jumped off a bridge, you gonna let your kid go jump off? Like honestly, that's literally where we're at right now. And you don't see Mark Zuckerberg saying, well, all these other kids have it, so my kids should. Like, there's a reason that they don't let their kids on these platforms. There's very specific, concrete reasons, because they know the harm that it causes. So, the idea that you would, as a parent, make a decision to allow harm because all the other kids are doing it, you know what I mean? That's crazy to me. That's just crazy to me.
My son asks me all the time, can I get a phone? I'm like, hey man, your tablet does all the things that you needed to do
right
at your age
for
right
now. Exactly, for right now. And that's what it is. Like, no, you can't have it, but here's why. I'm gonna explain it to you why. I'm gonna tell you why, but you're not getting it. You know what I'm saying? And they say, well, oh, they'll just go to their friends and do it on, but they ain't gonna do it in this house. That's what I'm saying right now. So it's just, I know we just kind of went off on a tangent, but it's really a shame that to bring it back full circle, we're having this conversation because this trial, there's parents at this trial. The crux of it is there's a 19-year-old or 20-year-old woman who claims she suffered, harm and she was addicted and this and that. So she's the primary plaintiff in this case, but there have been parents showing up to the trial every day whose children have committed suicide because of what is happening on these platforms. And they're hoping that their presence there will stimulate some sort of empathy in Mark Zuckerberg to put the protections in place for their children, when you could just not let your kid on the platform in the first place. Like, I'm not trying to, blame these parents for what happened to their children, but it's like, at the end of the day, you as the parent have the most influence over what your child does, whether you believe it or not. Yes, there's kids and peer pressure and all that other stuff, but you have the most influence still over what your kid does and does not do. And if you say no, then the answer is no. And if enough parents say no, we may avoid this type of thing going forward. And it just saddens me and angers me when parents say to me, well, all their other friends, they're going to be the only one that doesn't have an account, and they're going to be. Listen, I'm not here to have my kid win a popularity contest. You know what I mean? I'm here to keep my kids safe. So you got to make a choice at some point.
So I can't remember if we talked about this on the show or not, but here in Ohio, and basically January 1, law went into effect that there is no phones in schools any longer. So they have wiped them. And the students now 6 weeks in, they're adapting, and it's like, it's
chilling.
Actually, they've been running studies since last year. So this year it became a law that you had to do it. Last year it was kind of like you could choose to do it. So a lot of schools have already been doing this for at least a full calendar year before the law went into effect just January of this year. And all the studies show, like they even went so far, and I know we talked about this. They actually put like decibel level meters in the lunchrooms and the break rooms, and the noise went up. Why? Because you now have more students that are talking to each other.
They actually have to talk to each other.
And the students. Now, here's the thing: the students are, for the most part, okay. They're like, okay, wait a minute. Can I at least get it at lunchtime so I can just check to see what's going on? Hey, Ma, I'm going to be home from, pick me up after school. This is happening, that type of thing. So those kind of things are like, well, that's a reasonable request from a 16, 17, 18-year-old. But for the most part, the students they're adjusting very, very well to this. It is the parents, particularly
it's the
younger parents. It's the younger millennials that grew up always having devices from the time that they were, in 7th grade, 8th grade. They've just had devices and never didn't have it. It was just kind of thing for them. They're the ones who are doing the pushback, not the students so much, the parents of the students. So that just goes to show, it's like we need to do a lot of education stuff. This is your charter.
Well, we also need
actual parents.
Smarter gun laws in this country, because I do understand wanting your kid to have a way to contact emergency personnel if something goes down, and it's just way too common an occurrence anymore to try to act like, well, that's not going to happen in my school. You know what I mean? So there definitely are some considerations, but I am still very pro no phones in schools. Like, you got 12 other hours of the day that you could be on your phone. You don't need to be on your phone at school.
So as we move into this next story, Terrance, this one is kind of interesting because I personally am running into subscription fatigue because I have so many of these subscriptions. But your story is about Bootleg TV being on uptick. It seems like it is coming back. So tell us what's going on with how folks are getting around paying these streaming prices.
Well, the story centers around rural folks who already are limited in the access. In many cases, the only access is through satellite TV. So you think of Dish Network, you think of DirecTV, they are still around, surprisingly. But most of their, I would assume, most of their clients or customer base is rural people who don't have cable television, don't have whatever. So satellite, Dish TV, DirecTV, satellite TV screwing them over because they don't have no other options. And as a result, a lot of these rural people are saying, hey man, why would I spend $200-300 a month when I can spend $200-300 a pop and get one of these? I call them, I mean, back in my day, it was bootleg cable boxes is what they were, right? You know, cable,
pretty much.
Yeah.
You got a box. Can you hook me up?
Boy worked at the cable company. He removed the chip or added chip, whatever he had to do to bootleg them up. And, you know, you set it up, plug it to your television, boom, you got all the stations, right? It's kind of the same thing. This super box and its main competitor, VC box, are gaining in popularity as consumers get fed up with what TV has become. Pay TV bundles like cable, satellite are incredibly expensive. Streaming services are costlier every year, and you need to sign up for multiple services just to catch your favorite sports team every single time they play. The hardware itself is generic and legal, but you won't find these devices at mainstream stores like Walmart and Best Buy because everyone knows the point is accessing illegal streaming services that offer every single channel, show, and movie you can think of. But there are hundreds of resellers all across the United States, yada, yada, yada. So basically, the story talks about these two main competitors, and I would assume they are similar to like the new bootleg box, the Amazon Fire Stick.
It's like when Cody, you jailbreak your Fire Stick and put Cody on there,
right?
And then you get everything.
All that kind of, yep.
Right. So while the story is typically talking about rural users who are getting bent over by satellite TV and their only options, now they're looking at these alternatives. I'm curious as to how people like you, Rob, like you mentioned, who are paying for all these subscriptions, you know, would you consider like going like the bootleg TV route, getting you a Amazon Fire Stick or whatever these other two services that they have? Would you consider doing that in place of paying for all these streaming services, since you're already on this is getting too much train anyway?
Me personally, no. Why? Because I am a creator with subscription services that I offer to the public, and I wouldn't want them bootlegging my content. So I'm not going to go bootleg somebody else's content. What I am doing is I'm significantly decreasing the amount of content that I consume. Another thing that I've done, and I'm noticing you can do this with Apple TV and Amazon Prime Video fairly easily, is I sign up to everything through Amazon. So I've got one place to pay for all the stuff and one place to cancel all the stuff. So I am, and we've talked about this on the show before, I am what they call a serial churner. So if I'm not watching anything actively on Apple TV, I'll cancel it. If I'm not actively watching something on, I'm trying to think of a service like MGM Plus, I'll cancel it. If I'm not actively watching something on Paramount, I'll cancel it. And then when I want to watch something, I'll go ahead and bring it back. And I'm pretty good at doing that because I have moved to where I'm either signed up through stuff through Apple TV or signed up through Amazon. So I just go to one place, cancel, and it's done. It's just easy to do. It is a step that you've got to go through, but I am not that lazy that I can't just every so often look and see, am I watching anything on Paramount Plus? No, let me cancel that. Am I watching anything on Peacock? Let me cancel that. And then I'll go back and I'll re-up. Now, what I wonder is going to happen, will they catch on to that? And will they start offering, well, if you don't cancel, how about we just knock your rate down? Because my gut tells me they probably make more money if they just decrease the amount that you pay and you continue to pay every month. And that's how they get you. I haven't had that happen to me. I've heard some people say that they actually, well, how about $7.99 if $12.99 was too much? I've heard people getting those kind of deals. But for me, I wouldn't do it because technically you are stealing content. And, especially since we're content creators, we create content. We have, we start the show and end the show talking about Patreon. People who are patrons get additional benefits because they are patron. One of them is funding, how we do the show. Now, can anyone, if they really tried hard, figure out a way how they could get the show without getting ads in it? They probably could. But I appreciate those who don't, because it ultimately benefits the show and allows us to bring the tech to you the way that we bring it to you. So for those reasons, I do understand that the creators on the other end, whether we think they're charging too much or not, they're charging because ultimately that is their business model. So I am not trying to infringe upon that. But that is me personally. But I do know a whole lot of folks that had to fire
so
TV.
Nice.
So nice.
And that is so altruistic of you, Rob. I mean, I probably wouldn't necessarily do it either, but not for that reason. It would probably just be because these types of things always end up so janky with the user experience.
Sure.
The user experience is always janky AF. You got to go to 10 different places to try to find stuff. You're not getting your Spanish. Local, right. You're not getting your local channels. Like it just ends up being, I think, a little more trouble than it's worth. And I see I'm kind of freezing up a little bit, but it ends up being a little more trouble than it's worth. To you got 50 different remotes you got to use, and you got to go in this stream to find this and this thread to find that. And this, it just, I don't want to do the work of try. And then, stuff is halfway pixelated and it just is bootleg. And I mean, that's why the whole point is it's a bootleg experience. And I wouldn't want to do that, forever. And I would feel some kind of way if I paid $300-400 for this unit to have a bootleg experience. So, jailbreaking a Fire Stick with a Kodi for, $75 is one thing, but paying this much money to have a bootleg experience is, I think, something else, that I would not want to invest in. So, yeah, I mean, I'm managing my streaming subscriptions at this point. Like, I'm sharing some with family and, bartering and all that stuff. And I actually have an antenna now for my local channels that works really. Side note, I'm about to go off on another tangent. I got this antenna off of Amazon. It's a Philips antenna, but it's like old school rabbit ears type of antenna. It was like $12. This antenna gets me like 30 channels, like all my local stuff, like it bomb, like straight, because since I've moved downstairs, like I don't have two separate cable Verizon accounts. I'm just using the Wi-Fi from upstairs and that whole nine. So I was like, I'm not getting another cable subscription. So I'm just gonna thug it out with an antenna, and then everything else will just be streaming. But it's worked out quite well. So, I don't feel like I have enough of a reason to suffer through a lesser quality experience and pay $400 to do it.
Well, my thing, I've got a little childhood trauma because I grew up in a bootleg household. And I can remember putting VCR tapes in and DVD tapes in when you're trying to watch a family movie, and it just not worked. Or you see the dude in the corner holding the camera. You see people's head in the movie theater. And so as a result, I've grown up and I don't do bootleg for that reason.
Listen, heal your inner child, Terrance.
Right. But my answer to this would be, we need to stop watching so much content in the
There's
first
that part.
place.
Yeah.
Period.
So when I
Period.
turn off streaming services, I don't replace it with something else. I just turn it off and test myself. It's like, am I going to be okay with missing out on what everybody is talking about on social media as it relates to some show, right? You talk about what's the popular things out right now? The
Bridgerton.
Bridgerton, the Tyra Banks documentary,
Yeah.
and that's on, luckily that's the big things are on services that I already subscribe to. But I'm not about to go out and get a subscription just to watch this show because that's what everybody else is talking about. My thing is like, all right, can you watch less, right?
Right.
And
Facts.
are you, and at first, if you see people talking about it, this and that, and I'm like, all right, I see. But at the same time, it's like if I wait just a little bit longer, my mind is already on to something else, ain't got nothing to do with this content or whatever. So my thing is, instead of us trying to trip over ourselves, because that's what we did with cutting the cord. We was watching cable TV. Cable TV was too much. They had all these channels that we hardly didn't watch. So we as a society was like, let's go over to the apps to where the one or two things that I want to watch, that's all I got to pay for. Well, now everything is expensive. So now we're looking for this new thing, which is like, in this case, this is this bootleg thing still in TV, right? Just to get the same stuff that we're already watching. Well, how about you just watch less stuff? You don't have
Just
to
watch
pay,
less stuff.
you don't have to pay no money, and you can put that money towards other things, right? So that's where I'm at with it.
So a couple things. I want to piggyback on what you were talking about the antenna. So my mother is an OG cord cutter. She's like, look, I don't watch TV. Never really have. From the time she was a kid, she likes to watch news and she likes to watch a story every now and again, but she's never just needed cable because she reads. My mother probably reads 2 or 3 books a week. So that's where her time is in actual books. So she cut the cord a minute ago and she was like, listen, when y'all come to the house, you got phones. You want to watch Netflix? Come with Netflix on your phone. Stream it to the TV. You want to watch Hulu? Come to the house. All her kids is grown. Very grown. Her grandchildren, many of them are grown. So I'm not paying for this now. Because of that, whenever we go to mom's house, it's like it is kind of difficult to watch TV. So one of the things that my brother did it a few years ago, he bought her something called a Tableau, and I got her a new one this year for Christmas. So what this is it is a HD TV tuner with like a built-in, almost like a TiVo built into it, so you can actually record over the air channels. And it's ridiculous. And I'm telling folks now, if you are out in the wilderness, if you live out in the country, this is not for you. I don't mean to upset you, but if you live in a city, you would be shocked by the number of HD channels you probably can get if you had an HD antenna. You probably can pick some of the more powerful channels up just by turning your TV on and just letting it scan, and it's going to get several channels. But if you put an HD antenna in your window, or if you're like my mom, have an actual antenna on the roof, my mother can pull channels from as far as Pittsburgh. She lives in Northeast Ohio. She can get channels from Pittsburgh, from other parts of PA. She can get clearly her local channels in the Youngstown area, Warren area. She can get channels from Akron, the Akron Canton area, and she can get channels from Cleveland. So just HD channels, she probably gets over 100 HD channels. Now, many of them are duplicated. They're the same thing over and over again. But I would imagine that she probably has 40 to 50 unique channels of things you can watch. It's like there's a lot of HD stuff that's like, oh, wow, it's almost like watching like Tubi TV. You would just never knew that this was something that's just on regular over-the-air stuff that you don't have to pay any money for other than having an antenna that can pick it up.
Yeah, I looked into Tableau when you talked about it a little while ago, and I think there was some cost that I was just like, I did buy a which Wirecutter recommended, the flat tenna.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that big piece of, stuck it in my window. That thing didn't pick up a damn thing. I was so disappointed because I was like hyped, and the little $12 chumpy like gets everything. So yeah, I'm gonna rock with my antenna and then look at and then too, if you actually look at the free channels that your TV, whatever your smart TV is, there's
Mm-hmm.
usually a little live TV app
Mm-hmm.
option. Like you
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of stuff
A
there
lot of
too.
stuff.
Like if you just want to watch some random television, like you can watch TV without having to pay for it. Definitely. To Terrance's point, I think people get caught up in the water cooler shows and
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to say, I saw
Mm-hmm.
this and I saw that. And then
Mm-hmm.
then shit starts adding up.
And then again, I was on vacation last week to a place where I couldn't get the TV the way I wanted. I was like, all right, man, I'll just do something else. And I was all right with doing it. And the internet wasn't all, it was wasn't what I was used to. I'm pretty sure people over, where we were, they got the 2G and the 3G and LTE, but we already got 5G, 6G, so I got my phone and it's slowing down. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, let me just put the phone
I don't
down.
even need it.
I'm just gonna put it down and look
Right.
out the window. Now, of course, I was in a tropical place, so it was easy for me to look out and see the ocean and the palm trees or whatever. Versus, you in your apartment. I get it, but at the same time, it's like we gotta stop watching.
We do. We're way too crazy.
We're consuming
consumers.
entirely too much, and it's hurting our pockets.
I
Seriously.
agree.
All that being said, Paradise season 2 started up today.
So
I had to.
I will be watching.
I subscribe to Paramount because we will be.
Well, that's Hulu.
Yes,
that's on Hulu.
Yeah, it is.
No,
Hulu.
that's a good show.
So I didn't need to.
That's a good
so I don't
show.
need to
Hulu.
resubscribe to anything. Already, Hulu is a staple. So Hulu, Disney, Disney Plus, keep those all the time. But yeah, I'll be watching that tonight.
Yeah, and I'll say I'm compromised. I'm like, if I'm gonna keep Hulu, got to get rid of Disney Plus. Got rid of Disney Plus, keep Hulu. When Paradise, because I'm gonna watch that too. When Paradise go off, it's like I ain't really watching nothing on Hulu. That come down, and I'm not turning Disney Plus back on. It's like paring down the content.
We're just keeping
these parts.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we're gonna move to this last tech story we want to talk about today. Steph, you titled this "Did Big Tech Fail to Prevent Another Tragedy or Nah?" And I'm like, yeah, they kind of failed. In my opinion.
I think they kind of failed. It's crazy, and it only caught my eye because we had just talked about Uber like 2 weeks ago when the woman got a judgment against Uber for being sexually assaulted by one of the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
The driver had some sort of flag on their account already, and they did not tell this woman that this driver had been flagged for suspicious activity or whatever. I forget what the technical thing they said he had been flagged for, but the driver had been flagged as a potential danger, basically, and they did not tell that woman that driver had been flagged for that. So when I saw this story, it just brought that like right back to mind, because it's just like, bro.
Yeah.
So
they should have straight up been like Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost. You and what was her name? Oda Mae. You and Danger Girl.
Like they should have told her. They absolutely should have told her. But OpenAI is now coming under fire for something very similar, because there was a school shooting and mass shooting in Canada, in Tumbler Ridge, Canada, recently, where an 18-year-old girl, I was like, dad, girls is mass shooters now too, but an 18-year-old girl shot her stepmom and a sibling at home, and then went out and shot like 8 more people before turning the gun on herself. But OpenAI had suspended her account already because of violent activity. Let me find what they called it.
Furtherance of violent activities.
Yes, furtherance of violent activities. Yes, and it says she had used it to describe scenarios involving gun violence over the course of several days. So, she's in chat basically plotting out how she's going to carry out this thing. I mean, allegedly, I don't, we don't know, that we don't have the record, so we haven't seen exactly what she was talking to chat about, but it was egregious enough to get her banned from the platform.
And they couldn't tell nobody else.
But yet it wasn't egregious enough for them to alert authorities to try to prevent a potential mass shooting, which is exactly what happened. And it's just like, at what point, are we going to, like I said, we have to figure out how to hold these companies accountable some kind of way.
And they are it seems like they're fighting so hard against it, because what would it have taken for them to just slide a message over to the local authorities and be like, look, we banned this person, yada, yada, yada. We saw some suspicious activity. Here you go. Whatever you
Right.
do with it is whatever you
Is
do
up
with
to
it.
you.
We
Right.
just letting you know. And they couldn't even do that because they so don't want to be responsible at
Mhm.
all. And they feel
Right.
like if I'm responsible with
Even a
this
little
little
bit.
piece, I
Yep.
got to be responsible for all this. So I'm just not going to do nothing, which is not helping at all.
Right. And it says, according to a report, OpenAI considered alerting law enforcement about her interactions with its ChatGPT chatbot, but ultimately decided not to after an internal debate with about a dozen staffers, because it was determined that her activity didn't meet the criteria for reporting to law enforcement.
Their own criteria.
Right. And it said to do so, the company would have needed to detect a credible and imminent risk of serious physical harm to others.
Mhm.
An OpenAI spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal. So, I mean, you know, I get that you don't want to just be having, I mean, that would kind of feel like tantamount to doxing somebody, maybe, because you don't want to give this information over and have the police show up at a person's door when all they were doing was blowing off steam or, you know, whatever. But at the same time, you know, you've made it so hard to meet that standard of accountability on purpose, so you don't have to do it, and you can feel like, well, it wasn't imminent and immediate, and it wasn't, you know what I mean? You're letting yourself off the hook on a technicality, basically.
And that's all it is.
Yeah,
plausible deniability.
Plausible, absolutely, exactly. And now 10 people are dead because of it.
So I know
that's all they want to say.
This is the thing here in the schools in Ohio. If you see something, say something. I think that's probably a national thing, but you hear it all the time here in Ohio. And it's like, listen, if you got a classmate and the classmate is outside of a normal mode of operation and you think something could happen, we would rather you say something and be wrong than not say something and be right. So you can, as a student, you can go and say, hey, I think somebody has a gun, or I think somebody's got a knife, or I think somebody's contemplating suicide. You know, all these things you can go and say, and the school will then look into it. But if, let's say that they look into it and you are completely off your rocker about this particular person, you don't actually have any culpability in the fact that you have now notified the school.
Right.
You know, and you know, like the parents and stuff like that don't necessarily know what student this came from. I'm not saying that it needs to be like that you can just say anything about anybody as a company, because I do understand,
because that can be abused as well.
The reason the companies are not doing this, because if we don't meet this level of alarm, then if we say this, they're going to come back on us and sue the crap out of us for putting them through what they potentially would have.
I get that, but how does it meet the level of alarm to be banned from the platform, but not the level of alarm be brought to law enforcement? Like, if you felt so strongly that you don't want this person, because we talk about all the time, this, you know, all these companies are capitalists. All they want is the money. You don't even want this person's money,
data. You don't want nothing to do with
them. Their data. You don't want nothing to do with this person, which is going to ultimately hurt your bottom line. But you were so shook by what they were posting that you felt it necessary to ban them from your platform.
It's serious enough. You could have.
That's serious enough to then alert law enforcement. I mean, that should be the minimum standard. Like, that's a no-brainer. Honestly, a no-brainer.
Particularly when it wasn't because they were being racist or they were saying some stuff they shouldn't say, this violating your terms. It was violence that they were. This person is too violent to exist in this extremely violent place that we have set up for Earth.
Right. But we don't think it's worth giving anybody a heads up about. Come on, man.
And now some people shot up, and now y'all like, well, how do you sleep with you? I couldn't sleep with myself.
That's crazy.
That I could have done something and chose not to, and then something happened. I don't know if I could. I would have to go to a therapist.
There's definitely going to be an investigation into this, because it was you said a team of 12 that was going over this, and I'm guessing that 4-5 of them was like, hey, here's a problem. We think we need to do this, and I'm thinking that they got overruled, which is why no one was ever notified. But this thing happens after the fact. Hindsight is always 20/20. So there's that part, but I think that, you know, we've now had a couple of weeks in a row where we're talking about a company that knew something bad could happen, but it didn't meet the threshold of enough bad that we're going to notify authorities or notify anyone that, hey, you might want to go, check on this young lady, make sure she's all right, because clearly she was not. And it's just sad. And I don't know what the answer is, because I do get it. I do understand that if you're a company, the rules are different for you. You say this thing and you are wrong, the backlash could be enormous, because we know how the internet is. If you went out and you did this thing, people will be talking about you doxed this young girl, you've affected her life for, forever, and you've done all these things. So I get that. So we need to figure out how we can actually bridge that gap to where if you are shutting somebody's account down for violence, you probably should notify somebody that this person's account was shut down for violence.
And I think it speaks to training, right? I think, they should notify police, but the police should also be trained enough to be able to either approach the person with sensitivity to see if they need help, or the person's parents, or like there should be a process for this happening. Like, I'm not saying, the police should have been kicking in her door, talking about get on the ground, you know what I mean? And raiding her house in the middle of the night. There should be a process for this. Okay, we've identified this person. We know where they live. This is what they've been talking about. You hand that over to law enforcement, local law enforcement. But then law enforcement also needs to be able to, handle this with some modicum of care, so that, you're not spooking this person and they don't run off and leave town and go do the same thing somewhere else. Or like, there has to be a process. And I think that speaks to most people's complaint that law enforcement doesn't have enough mental health training and doesn't do enough for mental, like we got to do better all the way around. We got to do better all the way around.
I hope people don't believe police operates like Law and Order SVU, because they don't operate like that at all.
It's just like we gotta do a better job, because this it seems like it was like totally preventable. The same as that sexual assault.
Absolutely.
In that Uber.
Well, folks, as we have been doing every week in Black History Month, we have a spotlight for you this week. This spotlight, however, it has nothing to do with technology. It just has everything to do with somebody who recently just passed away since we've done our last show, and also just how big of a name in basically in social justice, is in my lifetime. It might be one of the biggest names. Maybe John Lewis might be a little bit above there, but as far as people who have been living, in my lifetime, Jesse Jackson was one of them. So Jesse Jackson, born in the segregated town of Greenville, South Carolina on October 8th, 1941, quickly established himself as a dedicated student and athlete. His initial attendance at the University of Illinois on a football scholarship was followed by a transfer to the Agricultural and Technical College of North Carolina, aka A&T, where he earned a sociology degree in 1964 and actively participated in local civil rights demonstrations. Jackson's commitment to activism deepened after his graduation. In 1965, he traveled to Selma, Alabama to march with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an event that led to his involvement with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Recognizing his drive, King appointed him as the director of the Operation Breadbasket, the SCLC's economic arm, though Jackson's fiercely independent style occasionally created internal conflict. Following King's assassination in 1968, Jackson eventually resigned from the SCLC in 1971. Post-SCLC, Jackson founded Operation Push in Chicago, focusing on Black self-help. He expanded his advocacy in 1984 by creating the National Rainbow Coalition, dedicated to fighting for the equal rights of African Americans, women, and LGBTQ individuals. These two groups were eventually merged in 1996 to form the Rainbow Push Coalition. Jackson's rising national profile propelled him into groundbreaking political campaigns. He ran for the U.S. presidency in 1984 and 88, securing millions of votes and achieving a remarkable success by placing third and second, respectively, in the Democratic primaries. Furthering his political engagement, he successfully ran for an unpaid statehood senator position in 1990 to lobby for District of Columbia statehood. Throughout his career, Jackson's profound impact on American civil rights and politics was widely acknowledged, culminating in President Bill Clinton awarding him the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2000, despite revealing a Parkinson's disease in 2017, he remained an advocate for engaging with modern civil rights efforts such as Black Lives Matter movement well into his later years. Jackson officially stepped down as the president of the Rainbow Push Coalition in 2023. He passed away on February 17th, 2026 at the age of 84, leaving behind a legacy as a pioneering leader who championed a diverse alliance of marginalized groups. So like I was saying, Jesse Jackson, as far as like civil rights leaders that were doing their work in my lifetime, him and John Lewis are right there at the top of it. It's just as far as their name recognition. And I remember this. Back in the day, back in the 70s and the 80s, if you had somebody that was being held prisoner somewhere around the world, Jesse Jackson is who you sent to get
was that dude.
He got
That's right.
hundreds of hostages released from stuff all over the world. I Am Somebody, famous thing that he did on Sesame Street back in 72. Even though that aired in 72, I remember watching it on Sesame Street when I'm 5, 6, 7 years old because they just kept replaying it over and over and over again. And then I remember, I think it was 91 or 92. He actually was on Saturday Night Live. And for those who don't know Jesse Jackson, he has, he has an alliteration style where he rhymes a lot. My man read Green Eggs and Ham on Saturday Night Live as a skit. He basically was on the on the news section that they do. Read the entire book. It was hilarious. And so we have to it's not the tech stuff. I didn't talk about anything tech here, but it's Jesse Jackson, y'all. He just passed away, and we wanted to shout him out, especially with this being the last Monday in Black History Month.
Absolutely. A giant in the civil rights movement. I'm about a third of the way through Abby Phillips' book. She is a CNN correspondent. She wrote a book called Jesse Jackson. It's called A Dream Deferred, Jesse Jackson and the Fight for Black Political Power. And it's excellent so far. I mean, her writing style is very relatable and it's very easy to read. But, I definitely did not know a lot about his beginnings and how he sort of came up through the ranks of the civil rights movement and just his impact and his importance to politics in America. Honestly, people kind of looked at, I think when he was running for president, I wasn't really old enough to understand what that meant. And I think, the internalized, ain't no black man ever going to be president of America. You just didn't think that it even was a possibility. And you kind of was like, what is he doing? Just kind of disrupting basically. But yes, he was disrupting for a reason. And there was a strategy behind that. And there wouldn't be a Barack Obama if there hadn't been a Jesse Jackson before him. So,
and I don't even believe, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was going to say, I don't even believe, looking back, I don't believe they thought they were going to win. What I thought or what I believe that they were doing was get him up there. Let me speak on the subjects, the topics, the issues that address us and force them to talk about it.
And that's absolutely what he did. Because that was the strategy. Because before he ran for president, he ran for mayor of Chicago. I think more than once up against Richard Daley, who was like huge in Chicago back in the day. But he did not expect to win. But he made him have to pay attention to the issues that he cared about. So to your point, I think that is exactly what his strategy was in his presidential runs. But Jesse was that dude. Jesse was absolutely that dude. As huge a figure as he is, I still don't even think he gets as much credit as he deserves for everything he's done for the struggle. So, rest in peace, job well done. You know what I mean? He fought all the way to the end. So, respect.
Yeah, absolutely. So y'all, it's been a week. There was a lot of tech, and I'm glad that we got through just the 3 stories that we had this week. I think they were good ones, but it's time for us to close the show. So Tech Life Steph, tell folks how they can get at you.
You can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph. Head to my website at stephaniehumphrey.com and tune in to Life and Tech with Tech Life Steph on Sundays from 11 a.m. to noon on Word Radio.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BrothaTech.
And we're on all things at the Tech Jawn, the Tech JAWN. And I'm also online everywhere at Robb Dunewood. So come holler at us however you holler. Until we meet again in a week's time. Peace.
Hey.